Remember Facebook games? You know, Farmville, Mafia Wars, little pastimes to distract us from whatever we were worried about back in 2011? I played my fair share and they did their job, but one in particular really struck a chord with me. One which has sadly faded from many minds over time, and was never even introduced to many more. Being raised on the 5th generation of Pokemon, my brain has been wired to collect weird little guys since I was around 9 years old, but I didn't venture much into Digimon or Yokai Watch or the plethora of other similar concepts. Except one. My name is Saint Sleep, and I'd like to introduce you to Miscrits' World of Creatures. Originally titled Miscrits of Sunfall Kingdom, this quirky little creature catcher graced Facebook around late 2011, developed by Broken Bulb Studios, a small studio based out of Arizona with only one prior game to their name, 2009's Ninja Wars, a game which I have never heard of or touched. Miscrits saw you in all too familiar scenario for a Pokemon fan. You're a young, fresh explorer setting out to find, capture, evolve, and battle elemental creatures and defeat evil. Of the starting selection, I remember picking Flu, this little fire thing. Horse? Dog? Pegasus? Your guess is as good as mine. I took him around the town and, oh, boy did I spend some time in this town. My undeveloped little brain spent so much time just wandering around and looking at my collection in the yard instead of, playing the video game. It was a small place, population of around 3.5, and sported your house, a store, training ground for your Miscrits, and microtransactions. As a quick aside, once when I was a kid with no clue of what money was or memory of spending it, I spent over £600 on a virtual fish tank game on my iPod. I was soon banned from ever doing that again. Anyway, after walking in circles, I eventually took him up through the Miscrian forest, battling, defeating, and catching all manner of little guys, and much like Pokemon, these little guys can become big guys, and I remember training up my Flu to maybe a Chimney or a Firebrawl, never reaching the illustrious Afterburn if memory serves. That's right, 4 whole stages of evolution. Maybe it's not a clone after all. Deeper into that forest I headed until I went a little too deep and encountered the plot. This is Apollo Nox, who, aside from sounding like an evil rocket ship and looking like he got kicked out of Organization 13, is the first member of the Magicites you meet. They are a cult of magic folk who want to steal power from the Miscrits and keep it for themselves, usual evil team stuff. I feel like this is a good time to insert an aside to say maybe it's just me, but this is one of the best looking browser games I've ever seen. The art is all so cool and stylized and detailed, and shows a real level of care for this game. Back to the plot, I did not experience much of it, being 9 and dumb and only allowed to play it on my grandma's computer because I didn't have Facebook, again on account of being 9. But what I did manage to claw my way to was the first elemental this game had to offer, and just look at it! This can't just be nostalgia, this thing goes hard! And with my trusty team, likely now evolved into gloriously overleveled freaks, child me felt a rush I hadn't known since staying up past my bedtime and defeating N with my DS on mute and my head under the covers. I was hooked. So hooked that I completely forgot about it for a good while after this. Was it the difficulty curve? A lack of sense of direction? Or that my mum just bought Pokemon White 2 for me for being a big brave boy at the hospital? Who's to say? But my love affair with Miscrits suddenly went on hiatus. Sometime later, much like it did recently, Miscrits popped back into my early teenage mind, and with my own Facebook account and computer in hand, I decided to take a trip down memory lane, a route I discovered had recently had renovations. Well, that or my brain had. A whole new area. Introducing the Mansion. Sporting Miscrits the likes I had never seen, I went wild looking up how to get the rarest, learning about dark Miscrits, which when you're 13 and me, is the coolest combination of words I could hear outside of Jetpack Joyride or Boob Images. Clad in black and gold, they relit the fire under me to get catching these virtual monsters in my free time away from catching virtual monsters. It was also this time that I discovered the online battle function, and not long after, that I was bad at the online battle function. I gave it my best shot, but often just found myself back in the mansion, running back and forth looking for Dark Snortus or some shit. Unfortunately, again, it wasn't to last. The obsession soon faded, and I found myself thinking less and less about Sunfall Island as I started high school, having less time for Facebook games and more time for 9 gag, I guess? Look, we all have regrets, let's stay focused here. Which brings us to sometime last year, and a bit of overdue foreshadowing. Where Miscrits owed its DNA to the creature collectors of the 90s and the early 2000s, the way it took form was much like that of Club Penguin, Moshi Monsters, the like. That is to say, online only. Words which shudder the spines of media preservationists everywhere. With me? Let's continue. In the middle of an intense session of wishing I wasn't at work, my brain sparked a memory which I'd buried a long time ago, of a game I once loved and hadn't thought about since my voice broke. What was Miscrits up to nowadays? In all honesty, I knew. I know what happens to these things, but a part of me hoped I'd misremembered. I searched Miscrits on Facebook and found a few fan groups which in recent years had become completely unrelated to the game. There was a mobile port I had hazy memories of, maybe that was different to the Facebook version I'd been exposed to. I checked the Play Store and, as expected, found nothing. But I was no stranger to a website hosting CIA files, so I went straight there and downloaded and installed the Android port of Miscrits and was met with expected disappointment. From what I can tell, Broken Bulb Studios have been inactive since about 2014, maybe 2015, which is disgustingly almost 10 years ago. So the minute I was met with a login screen, I knew hope was lost. I tried it on an old phone, since it seemed to be trying to access an old version of Google Play, but still nothing. Both the normal and Facebook login buttons just led me to a buffering wheel of disappointment. I tried BlueStacks, the Wayback Machine, even old fan sites. Nothing bit. I briefly reached out to the Lost Media Wiki, but ended up getting nowhere. Admittedly because I got busy with life and didn't pursue it. But that's no ending to a story, is it? Which brings us to the very night I'm writing this part of the script. It's August 21st, 2023, and I've decided to have a little look around. This is no longer a trip down memory lane. This is a lost media hunt. Broken Bulb's website, along with Miscrits.com, are a dead end, redirecting to something totally unrelated, but the social media does exist. I checked Instagram, nothing since 2014. Facebook, couldn't even find the page. I even found their Flickr account, a website I could not even begin to tell you the purpose of, but found nothing but seemingly traces of a fun office environment. All that remained was Twitter, and admittedly, it was what I was most optimistic of. Despite being long inactive, the Broken Bulb Twitter account was following 14 people, which intriguingly included the accounts of the members of the Fantasy Footballers podcast. Andy Holloway, Mike Wright, and Jason Moore. Jason's account, specifically, was his old one, listing him as president and co-founder of Broken Bulb Games. Not one to let a thread go unfollowed, I went over to LinkedIn and searched for Jason Moore and was quick to find our man, Andy and Mike listed right beside him. It was here I found not just Jason, but all three were former members of Broken Bulb Game Studios. And there I knew what I had to do. I sent a request to connect to all three, explained the purpose of this video, and I waited. And waited. Days turned to weeks. I even tried reaching out on Instagram, in the process discovering you can book a meeting on Instagram. Why would I ever do that? For this exact reason, apparently. But still, radio silence. And that's no end to a story either, but unfortunately, for now it's the one this story has. The fan pages, the platforms that once hosted it, even the creators had moved on. Miscrits was but a faded memory, living on in the wiki and let's plays and now this very video. Game preservation is important, and with the rise of free-to-play games as a service, this story will be one that's told again. And while most won't care, some will. Someday, if not now. If you are Jason, Mike, Andy, or anyone formerly associated with Miscrits or Broken Bulb, I'd love to talk and make a follow-up to this, but if this is the last I speak of the game, I just want to throw out a thank you for being great while it lasted. I only wish I'd spent more time playing while I could. A huge thank you goes out to the Miscrits wiki for allowing me to fact-check myself through this, providing the majority of the images I required for this video, and just generally being cool. If you played Miscrits when it was around, I'd love to hear your experiences and memories down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.